Here to talk about where we stand is Davidson College political professor, Dr. Susan Roberts. Good morning, Dr. Roberts.
Good morning.
Dr. Roberts, let's go ahead and start. We've seen a lot of people come. Former President Trump is here. There's going to be some surrogates for Vice President Harris, including former President Obama. Does it make a difference whether it is the candidate or a surrogate?
Well, I think it depends on the level of the surrogate. And I think Obama is going to be a big factor for Kamala Harris. And I think especially in North Carolina. The last time, 2008, was when North Carolina voted for a Democrat, President Obama. And I think it's going to make a big difference. It depends on who the surrogate is and where they're going. And I think Obama is going to be a big draw across the state. And Bill Clinton always has a reputation as a crowd pleaser.
And, we talk about Obama coming here, and part of his message to voters will be to vote early. Dr. Roberts, we've talked about these record-breaking early voting numbers in North and South Carolina. What does that signal? What should voters know about those numbers?
I think you can't always determine what the outcome is going to be, but I think you really can look at early voting a little more carefully and say it does mean a few things. It means a high interest, high mobilization election, and I also think it indicates what might be coming. If you have a lot of early voting, these are the people that are already convinced. Later voters, you can see people that are going to go on more gut issues and not really partisan issues. So I think if at this point with the early voting, from now on, it's not anything about convincing voters. It's about turning out voters. There's no more convincing to be done.
Well, Dr. Roberts, when we talk about battleground states, we know the candidates are going back and forth across the nation to those battleground states, including here. But what should people be looking out for as they start seeing these polls and seeing what's happening in the battleground states?
That's a good question, because I think we've gotten who's on, who's ahead, who's what percentage. And everybody has looked back at the polls in 2016, 2020, and they've become skeptical of polls. And I think it's at this point in the game, I think you can look and it's just minuscule. I think any polls in North Carolina, no matter what they say, Harris or Trump, they're going to be decided by less than 1% in North Carolina. So I think you have to look at the national polls, the state polls, and who's doing the polls. And I wouldn't, for a voter, I would say, don't let that be any guide to how you think your candidate is going to win. I think it's turnout, no more convincing. And so just to get this in, I think you're going to see now that election is not going to be the campaign in the last 2 weeks. It's not going to be about policy stances. It's going to be about gut issues. It's going to be about getting to the polls. And people are going to be looking at questions like character, questions that are not so, they don't need to be explained so fully. So I think it's going to be dirty, and it's going to be theme and not issues.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, because there's a lot of talk about the undecided voter right now and what each candidate needs to do to kind of pull them one way or another. So you're saying that those character moments right now is critical to voters?
Sure, because there's that issue proximity voter. I'm going to vote for the candidate that is closest to my interest. And then there's also you can't predict what issues are going to be on the agenda in 2025. So someone might say, I'm going to vote for the person I think can best handle the job. And I think independents or unaffiliateds in North Carolina are people that are maybe looking more towards someone that they want to vote for, excuse me, because they don't really have a vested partisan anchor. And so I think that might devolve more into who can govern, not just who will win the election, but who can govern, who do I trust? And that's not an unsophisticated calculus. That makes sense.
Well, Dr. Roberts, one of those issues that have come up about who they can trust is just how things have been handled with Hurricane Helene, especially here in Western North Carolina. How's that going to play in your opinion?
I think it's going to be very important. North Carolina is always important. Helene is one of those unfortunate events that's going to have an impact on playing on people's fears and the messaging and the turnout. This is why they've called this, 2024 the litigation election. That's not going to be more true anywhere than North Carolina, because you will have lower turnout. What will lower turnout mean for people that might have ordinarily voted for Donald Trump? That will be very contested, and I think it's one of those things in which people, it's. I don't like to see disinformation, and I don't like to see misinformation, and voters will have to say what's going on North Carolina? What is FEMA? What's FEMA doing? Where's the money going? And that's difficult to get a message out.